All right, we're live.
Hello, welcome to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast, episode 505. I'm Otto. Tonight I'm joined with Jared
What's up, guys?
and MC Noda 300, Mr. Alex. What's up?
Hey guys, good to see you.
And the man, the myth, the legend, the great Spike Cohen.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. This is my fourth time on the show, fifth time, something like that?
This might be number 4. I was just thinking about
Four
that.
seems right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
And we haven't driven you away
Good
yet.
number.
Not yet, no. Just for long periods of time in between. But then I can't. Every time I'm like, I have to come back. They did me wrong on the last episode, but I have to come back.
Redemption.
Yes.
It's our
They were
redemption
very
arc.
unfair to me. Very unfair, but I have to come back.
So how have you been, man? I feel like I haven't heard from you in a while. It's been a minute. So how's everything going on in the world of Spike Cohen?
The world of Spike Cohen has been just one series of wonders after the next. I'll tell you, when I started You Were the Power in 2021, it was a proof of concept. I thought I had a good idea, but I'm like, all right, let's see if this actually works. And we did some test causes, and they worked. I'm like, all right, well then. All right, well, we'll launch it, but I want to launch it as sort of a soft launch before we go, fully public, and we'll see if that works. And then that worked. And then last year I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to expand it because things are going well, but we'll see what happens. And then that worked. And long story short, You Were the Power now has thousands of members and activists across the country. We're in the process of opening chapters in other countries. We have helped.
Wow.
At this point, close to 100 different causes. People that were having their homes stolen from them, we put an end to that. People that were having their small businesses destroyed, we put an end to that. People that were having their loved ones, their grandparents removed from their homes, we put an end to that. People are having their children stolen from them by CPS, we put an end to that. And all the way along the way, we continue to grow and we continue to drive home our underlying message behind all of this. There's more than you ever thought you could do when we work together. We can accomplish so much working together, and none of this would be happening, or we can put an end to this permanently when we consistently demand that everyone respect us as individual human beings, including people that are the government. They're just people. They should respect us just the same as we'd expect it when they're not in the government. And it's just been incredible to watch it happen. We've grown. We've helped so many people. Traveled the country talking about it. It's been amazing, man. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and it just keeps getting better.
That's great. And I know I recently saw a thing you posted too. It was kind of like what we let off with about there's a woman in, what was that, Florida, Rebecca? What state was
Rebecca
that?
Massey. That's in
Yes.
Surprise, Arizona. We are in the
Okay.
process of talking with. We've been talking with Rebecca and with her people, and I'm not quite ready to say what's coming, but the town is called Surprise, so we'll see what happens. But it's gonna. We're about. Well, I don't want to say anymore. But yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
We have
For
spoken.
How do you
those that
decide?
don't know, we have the docs.
Yeah, we have the
yeah.
docs on this. I don't know if we want to tell the story behind this. I just saw a video of it yesterday. I think it was. She's just at a meet. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit of a video. I realize that it's like 2 minutes.
We got time.
But-
Yeah, we got time.
Play it.
Well, here, let me give a little background because the
Yeah.
longer video it gives a little bit more context. Basically, Rebecca Massey is a resident of Surprise, Arizona. She came to her city council meeting to confront the city council and the mayor who had just voted to give a bunch of the officials raises. And she's been filing FOIA requests for quite some time on a bunch of different things, including what employees are being paid. And they keep refusing. I think she mentions this in the beginning of the video. They keep refusing. They keep just saying it's pending legal review. They're not giving her the documents she's entitled to. And so she went there and called them out. And then you can watch what happens from there.
Shirt is
public
based.
records requests that I have
Yeah.
open right now that are pending legal
if we can
review
stop
that
for a
I'm
second.
Yeah.
As you look at that shirt, if you go to youarethepower.net/cyber, you can get all of our cyberbully the government gear, including
that's
that awesome shirt there.
Yeah, I saw that was the first thing I saw. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God. Like great advertising.
I've got to interrupt you here because
Okay, are you going to stop the timer?
Sound like
this is
Biden
the
for a
public
second.
meeting forum that you agree to when you speak.
Like a coherent
And I
Biden.
want to read this to you, that there are oral communications during the city council meeting may not be used to lodge charges or complaints against any employee of the city or
Such
members
bullshit.
of the body, regardless of whether such person is identified in the presentation by the name or by any other reference
Tell
that
me it doesn't
tends to
sound like Biden a
identify
little
him or her.
Yeah,
That's
a
all
little bit.
fine, well, and good, but that's
So-
a violation of my First
Yeah,
Amendment
so
rights.
that's.
Yeah. So can
well,
you pause
this
for
is
one more
your-
second? Sorry, I apologize.
No.
So what that's Mayor Skip Hall, and what he referenced there is
Skip.
in order to be able to speak there at the public forum, the First Amendment affirmed opportunity for residents to redress their grievance against government, petition for redress of grievance against government by speaking directly to public officials. They require them to sign a document that says, among other things, they will not speak out against any of the officials, even if they don't name them. So you literally cannot go there. If you went there and said, I don't think this city council is doing a very good job, they would say, oh, you're in violation. You're not allowed to speak anymore. There are multiple court decisions, the most recent one being from 2013, but they've been decades of case law that affirms that any such document is blatantly unconstitutional. There's absolutely nothing, no provision that would allow for them to tell residents that they have to sign something to agree not to talk about certain subjects. They can say that you're not allowed to be disruptive, but disruptive means you have to make an actual threat. You have to stop other people from speaking, which, by the way, is what Skip is doing there. He's actually disrupting.
Right.
But anyway, so that's what he's referencing there. So, and she correctly says that violates my rights and it's unconstitutional. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Warning, okay?
A warning for what?
A warning for attacking the city attorney personally.
This is all factual
It
information.
doesn't matter.
You're violating my First Amendment rights.
This is what you agreed to when you first speaking. This is the form.
It is unconstitutional, Mayor Hall.
Well, it's not unconstitutional.
It is.
And if you're
The
It is.
Supreme Court
you're
has
gonna
upheld. I
continue-
could get up here and I could swear at you for 3 straight minutes, and it is protected
No,
speech
no, you
by the
can't.
Supreme
Correct.
Court. It is.
No, you
Yes,
Why
can't.
don't you look
can.
at case
She's
law?
right.
No, you can't.
I can.
So if you want to be
Also, the chair is
if you
engaged
wanna
in
be
debate,
escort-
so
do you
point
want
of
to be
order.
escorted out of here? Do you want to be escorted out
You're
of here? or are you
violating my
gonna
First
stop
Amendment rights.
Talking.
You are violating my First Amendment rights.
That's your opinion.
It's not a
Okay.
matter of opinion.
Do you want to be escorted out,
Wow.
Ms. Massey? Because that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen in the future also. Anytime you attack.
That's
any
why you changed
staff
the
member
rules.
Or any.
That's why you
city-
changed the rules.
This has been on the back of this form.
I understand,
all the
Mayor
time.
Hall, but that is completely unconstitutional.
Yeah, but the Constitution's been
You're
around
also
since
engaging in debate,
you
and so you should actually be
70s,
yielding the floor to
90s,
somebody
so-
else
Okay.
managing.
Chief, could you have somebody come down here and escort Ms. Massey out of
Really, is
this
that
chamber?
necessary?
Yes, I
In
think
front
it
of my
is.
10-year-old daughter, you're going to escort me
That's
out
fine.
for expressing my
She
First
can go
Amendment
with you.
rights.
She can go with you.
I'm not leaving.
How nice of him.
Well,
I'm expressing my first. Do not touch me. Do not put your hands on me.
We're in the
Do not
process
put
of
your
finding
hands
out
on
who
me.
that cop is, by the way.
Nice.
Mm.
Do not put your hands on me.
come out with me now before you get arrested.
Yeah, so he's like grabbing her by the arm. People listen.
So he hasn't said you're under arrest. He's just forcing her out.
Yeah,
Yep.
Correct. He has not detained her or arrested her
Okay,
because
so
she has
I'll-
violated no law.
Right.
He's just straight up assaulting her.
Yeah, I know.
I just feel bad, like you're seeing her daughter run. You can see her daughter
Okay.
like, run.
Yep.
I'll entertain a
awful.
motion to go into E-session.
Motion to go into E-session?
Like, what a
Been moved and
Freaking
seconded.
pig.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're going into
What a
E-session.
stupid old fart.
So anyway, his Twitter at is hold on one second, I can tell you.
oh.
Or X, sorry, I still say X. At Skip Hall 2. But yeah, more to come on that. But yeah, bottom line, she was correct. She could literally go up there and say nothing but vulgarities about Skip Hall for 3 minutes, as long as she did not threaten him or stop anyone else from speaking, which, by the way, is what he was doing. So he's actually violating the law by and it sounds like he was violating bylaws. When she said point of order, I think that their bylaws don't require them to debate with the people speaking during public order, but that's their own personal rules on what their officials can do. But so it sounds like he was violating the city bylaws too. Anyway, more to come on that. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that we fight at You Are the Power. We find examples of people who are being run roughshod over by public officials who are completely out of control because they think they can get away with it and no one's paying attention. We let them know we saw it, we are paying attention, and you're about to have thousands, or in some cases tens or even hundreds of thousands of people let you know what they think about it.
Yeah.
So how do you find these cases? Do you kind of just wait for people to reach out to you? Do you kind of troll the internet, just looking for, not like the bad kind of troll, but you know,
You
what
mean
I
patrol?
The good troll.
no, troll like
So
like a fish troll, you know?
Yeah. So at this point, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
Initially, we were out looking for stuff, and now it comes to us. And as we are expanding, we're able to get, to actually catch more and more of these causes as they're coming through. Unfortunately, we only have a limited amount of people and hands on deck. So I'm sure there's all sorts of good stuff that it never even gets to us.
Yeah.
But we find stuff, we vet it as quickly as we can, and then we go live with it as quickly as we can to get it out to the public. And our method is pretty straightforward. After we vet these causes internally to make sure they're true and there's something we can actually build a movement around, and this is definitely an example of that. Then from there, we figure out who are the public officials involved, what are their how do we find them on the internet, what are their pages, their X accounts, where are they on Instagram and all that stuff, where's their website, what's their email address, their phone number, and all of that. We get all the factual information together, and then we put out content explaining what happened. And what we do is when we put out stuff, we don't just say, hey, this terrible thing happened. We say, this terrible thing happened. At the end of this, we're going to give you a link to how you can help. And now here's the full story, and here's that link. And we actually send them to our website, a page for that cause. It's got email addresses, phone numbers. We're going to start adding the social medias as well to that, so that, and we say, here are the people involved. Here's who you go after. And if you can't quite figure out what kind of productive wording you'd like to use to talk to them, we even have a wording template they can use, and you can borrow from it as you wish. And if you want to freestyle on them too, you can do that. But if some people, they're like, I want to say something but I don't know what, and it's like, here you go, this is something you can say, or you can borrow from it. And we have had and then we keep following up with the officials, and then when the officials back off and do the right thing, we contact everyone. We go back out and say, hey, great news, the guy backed off. And if they are gracious about it, we actually encourage people to thank them for it. People do stupid things sometimes. Very often they're not gracious, but every once in a while we'll run into one where they go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we did the wrong thing, whatever." We go, "Okay, great." We like to use positive reinforcement. We'll see if Skip wants to use positive reinforcement or not, but we'll figure out what happens there.
Balls in your court, Skip.
Balls in your court, Skip. It really is up to you there, bud.
Do you guys have like a legal team or anything like that to help people, or do stuff tangentially?
Yeah, so we don't do the court stuff per se, but we are increasingly partnering with people who offer free and low cost work in the courtrooms on that.
Nice.
In fact, one of our original yes, exactly. We're already, we cyberbully early and often. But so for example, the Joshua Rohrer case, the Gastonia police case, those who've been following me for a while, that was from like late 21. We got involved early 22. We're about to drop a big update on that tomorrow. And that's where he has a legal team that's been helping him in the court side. We don't usually do the court stuff. We do the public attention stuff, but we also help them. And if possible, we try to partner them with people if they need someone to help with the legal court stuff as well. But that's kind of off site from us, but we help to make connections when we can. We're also increasingly looking to partner with people because, we've dealt with people that have been completely traumatized, like their children were being stolen from them and just some of the most horrific, traumatic things. And so we're increasingly starting to partner with people that can offer counseling services for people to actually help them pass this. It's one thing to say, hey, here's your kid back, or hey, you're no longer being arrested for this. But that was one of the more mild things that we've taken on. And how traumatic is that to get arrested in front of the public and in front of your 10-year-old daughter? So we try to, we're increasingly looking at this as holistically as we can. We stay focused on our component, but we try to bring in other partners to offer the other things that people will need involved.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Heck yeah. That's what's truly needed in this movement. I mean, I don't know. It feels though the Libertarian Party, just libertarians, just the liberty movement needs to focus on their local tyrants. Things are, I think, too far gone on the national level. There's no influence there. The amount of money, time, and effort just to make a dent in it, it's not worth it. But if you could go down, if you have the ability, if you have the time to go to your local county council or city council or whatever the case may be, because they're petty tyrants. And they need to be shown that, that what's up. And
we're paying attention. Awesome. That's really what it comes down to. And I'll tell you something, man. The reality is, even if the federal government were 1/10 of the size that it is right now, which would be a great thing, we still wouldn't be big enough to deal with it. The problem isn't just that, the national or federal issues are too far gone. It's that we're too small to deal with it anyway. Right. But if you can successfully build a movement that is based on the same components of what you would do at the federal level if you were big enough, discovering things, vetting them, getting the word out to the public, or organizing people around positive action and following through until you win. If you can build that at the local level and build it up from there, so that now we're now taking on state things, this stuff we're doing with CPS, we're taking on multiple state governments at this point. And working on a model to fix it at the state level across the country. That's eventually going to grow to a point where we can start taking on the federal things. But it's got to start local, because for a long time, and this is, I remember I talked a lot about trying to build a culture of winning in 2021, because the biggest problem within the liberty movement is we have a culture of losing. We have our lofty ideals, which are based on solid principles. And anything that falls short of that, we say that's not good enough. The problem is we don't have the wherewithal to do anything. So we fall into these, 2 and 4 year cycles where we run for president, run for governor, run for Congress, races we have no shot in hell of winning. And we say, and when we get in there, we're going to end the Fed, and we're going to end the IRS, and we're going to get out of the UN, and we're going to end all the wars and bring the troops home. We're going to fight this multi-trillion-dollar central banking and military complex, blah, 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 blah. And instead we do nothing. And then we say, oh, the system's rigged. There's nothing we can do about it. And then we lick our wounds for a few months and we go right back to it. And we've been tilting at windmills for decades now. And what I'm saying is, if instead we start to build a movement that is built on these small wins, not just wins of getting these specific examples, playing government whack-a-mole, finding these corrupt officials and knocking them down a peg, building a movement of people who want to do that, building a viable blueprint for how to do that, and then expanding at scale from there. Eventually, we will be able to take on all of those things. We may not even ever have to run for office, hopefully, because I hate running for office. And we may just do it through activism and through changing people's hearts and minds, to getting them to understand, whether it's your dog catcher or your mayor or the president or anyone in between, you must demand that they respect you as an individual human being. We can build a movement out of that can change everything.
Speaking of that, here's our new fan, Joe Redacted. New fan here, first time commenter. Has this guest considered a run for public office?
Well, yeah. So Joe Redacted, I actually did. I did run for public office, and I went all across the country. And I know he was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'm answering it earnestly though. But I will say I did, and I was up 20 hours a day for the better part of a year, and I visited close to 40 states. My running mate also visited close to 40 states. We got 1.5%, give or take. We came in, and by the way, that was third place. It wasn't like we were in a distant, we were in 10th place or something. Third place was 1.5%. It's the second highest our party's ever gotten. We aren't going to win the White House and then trickle down liberty from there. That's not going to work. We have to build a movement from the bottom up and learn all the lessons of how to succeed along the way. And when we do that, we will have an incredible movement. We already do have an incredible movement. It's going to keep growing.
So you're saying I might not see liberty in my lifetime?
I'm saying you will see, if we keep doing the work, you will see more liberty in your lifetime. I'm going to borrow a quote from Dave Smith. I'm also going to butcher it. I'm going to borrow and butcher it. He said at the convention, I think at his lunch or whatever that he did, he said, we talk about setting the world free in our lifetime. That's a very, Dave said it's impossible. I'll take a step back and say that's extremely lofty. I would sooner say let's be freer tomorrow, next month, next year than we are now. That's already a hard enough goal. Let's do that. And are we ever going to achieve maximal freedom in our lifetime? I have no idea, but I know that if we don't do anything, it's going to get worse. And the more that we do, the closer we can get to freedom, and the better we can set up future generations for their fight for freedom. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I see more of this as like an impactful thing of like, if you can make people freer in their own personal life by this one thing thing here, it's like who knows what dominoes might fall or could fall, or kind of hope you may give to someone else who decides that they're not going to put up with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you never know. It's like I always say, like, be a kind of like a lighthouse for liberty. It's just kind of, you got the shirt, you are the power. Like that's total, like, when someone who with a curious mind reads that and is like, what do you mean? Like, what does that even mean? It's like, stuff like this, that you can point to a lot of the stuff you've done. What would you say has like been the biggest thing you think you've accomplished so far with You Are the Power? Like one story or anything in particular?
It's hard to pick from any of our causes because it's like, wow, which was more impactful? The person who was facing several years of charges and they all got dropped because the DA realized we were paying attention, or the person who was, I would say if I really had to pick, it's any of these families who were at risk of losing their children and they got them back. And they were being told they'd possibly never see their kids again. And instead they're back home and they're rebuilding from what was what they tried to take from them. When I've met a couple of the families that we've helped, and to have people with tears in their eyes saying, your organization is why my kids are in our home, and knowing that it's not hyperbole what they're saying, that's as impactful, it's as profound as anything I've experienced. It's insane. There's also been the number of people that, I guess second to that would be all the people that have come up to me and said, when I would talk about liberty and people would say, yeah, but this, yeah, but that, I was constantly arguing about libertarianism on the internet. And now instead I share your causes, and those same people that would go, yeah, but what about roads? What about, the fire department or the library or whatever? They never say, what about the interest on the national debt? They never bring that up, which is basically what you're funding at this point. But now those same people are like, wow, how can I be involved? And they go, you'll go to this link and here's who you contact. And, but I would say, yeah, if I had to pick something, it would be the people whose families were being destroyed, who, they're not being destroyed anymore. That's probably the most that hits home, the people that, because some of these families, not only did they have their children stolen from them, they were also not allowed to speak with their spouse.
Oof.
They couldn't live together. They couldn't speak with each other. They were legally estranged indefinitely. Because what they do is they go, oh, okay, well, you're under arrest for this. The only way you can get bail is agree to these bail conditions, one of which is you guys can't speak to each other. And these bail conditions will continue until your criminal trial is adjudicated. The criminal trial never comes because the criminal trial would have discovery and due process, things that don't exist in family court. And with due process and discovery, it would become very clear that the parents did absolutely nothing wrong. And the only crimes committed were by Children's Protective Services and all the other officials involved. So instead, they just, the indictment never comes, the trial never comes, but those bail conditions remain. And so what happens is they go, okay, and they come to them and say, listen, we're just going to keep holding this over your head. You'll never talk to your wife again, or you can just give your kids up. We're going to take them anyway. You might as well just give them up, and then you'll get to live with your wife again. You can have more kids. One of the families told us that they were told, you can have more kids. You're young.
Wow.
That's insane.
What are some of the circumstances that CPS got involved with these families or these custody cases or whatever? Like, What,
in
what are the
almost every case we've taken on, it is a very common, much more common than you would think. The child has a as yet undiagnosed chronic health condition. It first presents, whether it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a very common connective tissue disorder. Who here knows Thomas Queter? He's the guy who's in the wheelchair.
Yeah, New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
Met him in Orlando for the first time.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, he's an
we hung
awesome
out
guy.
many a times. Yep.
His condition is called osteogenesis imperfecta, and it caused him to grow in the way that he's grown, and he's not able to walk. His legs weren't developed correctly, and so forth. It often presents the first few weeks after birth, first few months after birth, and at that moment, the child may look fine. It's a developmental disorder, so they don't come out looking like that. They start developing wrong. Anyway, so it'll be one of those types of disorders. It hasn't been officially diagnosed yet. They go to a children's hospital. They take their kid to a hospital. They don't even know the kid has a condition yet. The doctor, the child abuse pediatrician, will see this kid, do blood work, do X-rays, all of that. They'll see that there's a bunch of fractures and a bunch of bruising. The blood work and the testing will come back showing they probably have a health condition. Unfortunately, under Title 4D, I believe it is, of the Social Security Act, Child Protective Services and the entire pipeline, including child abuse pediatricians and the foster care system and everything that's a part of Child Protective Services, they get federal money, but only if they call it abuse. And so these doctors intentionally, knowingly, wrongfully call these cases abuse, because if they don't, and it turns out to be abuse, then they're in trouble and they never got any money. But if they do call it abuse, well, it's on someone else to determine if it really is abuse. I just said it was abuse on my end, and we got money for it. The problem is everyone on the pipeline does that. They just kick it down the road and go, well, it looks like it might be abuse to me. Oh, there's my money. I'll let someone else determine if it really is. That never happens. The kid gets stolen. All the other children in the home get stolen, and they get trafficked to their unknowing adoptive parents who don't know that there was that, until what happens is then they find out later on that they do have this chronic health condition if the child survives that long. The federal government gives money if it's called abuse. They give more money if they're put in foster care. They're given even more money if they are adopted permanently and
That's
seized
terrifying.
from their parents. And they're given even more money if that kid turns out to have a health condition. So when that child abuse pediatrician sees this newborn or 1-year-old or 2-year-old, this young kid with a chronic health condition that hasn't been diagnosed yet, instead of looking at them like an individual human being and say, wow, this child needs help, I'm glad that they're there, that they're here, we can start to give them the help they need, they see them as a funding opportunity. They go, cha-ching, we're going to get so much money from this. And that's the problem. And it is a systemic problem. It is happening. We don't know how many times, but it's happening way more often than you would think. It's happening by the thousands in just Georgia. It is happening. It is insane how often it is happening. And it is, to my mind, it is child trafficking. It is the illegal seizing of children and transferring to someone else in exchange for money. That is child trafficking. And it all started with what was probably a well-meaning attempt to fund CPS at the federal level. And it turns out when you subsidize only a specific outcome, you get a lot of that outcome.
Yeah, and you got to think about it, because then when they, at the end of the year, they say, "Oh, we had this many cases that we have," and they pat each other on the back and say, "We got to go harder."
Justifies their existence.
Yeah, it justifies their existence.
It's like the FBI, like, oh, he was always on our radar. Like, oh, we looked at it. Now we got more funding because there was a plot.
This is CPS's version of Waco or Ruby Ridge. It justifies their existence. It gets them secured federal money. Most states now have aligned their state funding with how the feds do it. So now you're only getting your state funding if you call it abuse. And so it's just it's being run through the family court system instead of the criminal court system, because the family court system, most family courts in this country are operating as unconstitutional administrative tribunals. They are literally just deciding what they want to do. And what they're saying in these states where they're doing it, they're saying, well, we're not punishing them. We're just deciding what to do with the kids. Who here is a parent? Okay. If you had to choose between 5 years in jail and never seeing your kids again, which one would you choose?
5 years in jail.
5 years
Yeah,
in jail.
it don't even have to say it, right?
Yeah, like,
And yet they're
exactly.
claiming, oh, well, we're not punishing them. We're just deciding whether or not to take their kids. It's like the worst punishment you could give to a parent, right? And so what we're doing is not only are we, like I said, playing government whack-a-mole, finding these examples, getting these parents reunited, we're building a movement around fixing this at its core. And we're working on building model legislation that can be passed at the state level, which would change the funding so that they're not
awesome.
actually subsidizing a specific outcome. It would reintroduce due process by requiring that allegations of abuse go through the criminal court system instead of the family court system, so that there's some kind of due process and some kind of presumption of innocence. And if they have some kind of because a lot of people have said, yeah, but in an exigent circumstance, if we think that the kid is at risk right now, we don't have time to wait for the court. Okay, fine. If there is going to be a seizing of a child for exigent circumstance, there has to be some kind of limitation for how long they can keep the kid, whether it's a day or 7 days or whatever it is. There has to be some kind of limit where if they don't have probable cause that can be presented in a criminal court, then the child goes back home. And those three things, there are a few things that we're working on, but those are the three main things that would eliminate probably anywhere from 90 to 99% of this stuff, because it would remove the perverse incentive and reintroduce some level of due process, and they would sniff around and find some other way to get their funding.
Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's almost as if the healthcare
Government's bad or something.
Yeah, almost like it. Almost like government's bad.
Government's
Yes.
bad. Okay. It's almost if the doctors have perverse incentives too. I don't
Literally.
know. It seems
Yeah.
like
It's
I don't know.
almost
If
as
anything,
though-
during 2020, during the COVID's times, it's almost as if doctors.
I don't know. Are we on YouTube?
Whatever.
Yeah,
we
fine.
we're
We're kinda under the
We may
radar.
not be soon. We may not
yeah.
be soon.
We tend to
I
fly under the
mean,
radar.
A long time ago.
We saw they were paying. So a perfect example. They said, yeah, you're only allowed to do respiratory ICU. You can't do any of the other, no surgeries, no screenings for cancer, other things that are also fatal. Where you can't do any of that. You can only do respiratory ICU. And the hospitals are saying respiratory ICU is always a loss. You're telling us we will all have to go out of business. We can't do that. And the feds went, oh, okay, well then what's so expensive? Well, the respirators and the oxygen. Okay, well, if you put them on oxygen, you get this much money. And if you put them on respirators, you get this much money. It turns out they were using a lot of respirators and oxygen. And
The worst thing for upper respiratory is to lay down and we're gonna pump you. Like with
if
oxygen.
you don't need it. If you don't need it,
right.
exactly.
Right.
But meanwhile, the hospitals are like, listen, otherwise we go out of business, because they weren't letting them open the things that actually keep them in bit. Like it's things like mammograms and cancer treatments and things. That's the stuff that has like actual margins that they can operate off of. Respiratory ICU loses money, so these hospitals are like, okay, we either let some of these people die or we go out of business and everyone dies. And so it puts the hospitals in these really perverse problems. And I'm sure they're justifying this CPS abuse the exact same way. This is how we get funded. Well, let's change that.
Yeah.
It sounds like this is why we should have universal health care. So this stuff
Yes,
doesn't
obviously.
ever happen.
It'll all
Bernie
be
Sanders
solved.
could have fixed all of this. Yes.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I mean, the worst pandemic in our lifetime, and there was a lot of TikTok dancing nurses and healthcare workers just hanging out, just
Just dancing.
So just dancing, just having a good time.
Just dancing.
But anyway,
speaking of
we're getting booted for YouTube officially.
Yeah,
I was gonna if we're getting booted, it's because of something you said. I don't want it to be anything I said.
I mean,
Nope, it's all
I'm
on you,
surprised
man.
we
It's all
haven't
on
already.
Spike.
like Spike Cohen got us
we were
kicked
fine.
off
YouTube was
YouTube.
fine with us
500
until
episodes down, and then Spike
was,
showed up.
and Spike gets on and starts talking about respirators.
Yeah, we had a great time. We had some crabs last 2 weekends ago
Yeah.
at Crabtown, USA, in Glen Burnie. Spike, they have arcade games, classic arcade games, and
They have
it's an arcade and crab house.
They have crabs. I was with you guys. What was that? 21 or 22? We did the crab.
21.
21.
21. Oh my gosh, I ate so many crabs.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I don't like, for those who don't know, all I eat is seafood, vegetables, and fruit. And y'all didn't have any vegetables or fruit. You just had crabs. So I filled up on crabs. at least like 15, 20 crabs I ate. Because again, it's not crabs aren't very filling on their own. So I ate a lot. I went there and I said, I think I said this to you because Otto, you picked me up from the airport. I was like, we're about to find how many crabs it takes to fill a medium-sized Jew. And we did. It was about 15, 20.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So funny, because it's just I feel like all of our ideas just circle around crabs. Like we had the crab feast for the Maryland Libertarian Party, which was coming up in a few weeks.
It's a very one-dimensional state that we live in.
Saturday the 7th is the Maryland LP Crab Feast, annual crab feast.
Yeah.
Listen, if it works, keep going.
It ain't broke.
Yeah, so like we had that for our 500th episode. We just bought crabs for everybody, and then we recorded a podcast while we all had like little crab on and stuff. And so we did that for our 500th episode, and then I went out for my birthday and had crabs, and then I'm having another crab feast on Saturday. I'm going to, and and then there's another one happening at the end of September. So it's just like it seems to be what I'm doing a lot this time.
Well, you have to get it in
because a lot of crab.
You have to get it in though because it's only in season for like what 3 months, right?
Yeah,
3 or 4 months.
And this is when they're the heaviest. This is
right.
This is good.
Same
And then
here,
summertime's over. Hey.
Oh, I got to go to Coco's and get a crab cake before season ends.
Oh yeah, I've never been there. I gotta check that place
I
out.
just heard about that the other day.
So good, dude. It's probably gonna be like $60 for a crab cake, but fuck it,
heavens,
it's worth it.
Oh Lord.
Gotta do it.
Well, I think enough people they've heard enough about our crab cakes.
Yeah. All right.
I look like even when you started, you're like, oh gosh, it always ends up being about crabs, and then we talk about crabs for 10 minutes. Like it's
what we do. I don't know.
This is what we do.
We're a bunch of dumb Marylanders. I don't know. It just kind of happens.
But
I was
got
gonna
some
move
docs.
on to,
Go ahead, Otto. Yeah.
I was just gonna say about like I once again want to ask everybody. I feel like I've been starting off the podcast. At least ask us during the podcast. So who's the president? Do we know who the president is right now? Does it matter? Does anyone care?
I don't
he
care.
alive?
No.
It doesn't. I mean, it matters, but it matters to the extent that all of our options suck. But I don't think I would have said Ron Klain, but he quit. So I'm not even sure who's running. I think it's from the social media aspect, it's a bunch of 20-year-old cat ladies that I know. I don't. Outside of that, I couldn't really tell you.
I don't know. I just find it so weird. Like Joe Biden can't run because he's too inept, but yet he can
run the entire.
Well, that's just your speculation, Otto. I think he just graciously he was like, we need to get this black lady in office, and he just stepped aside.
But hold on. Don't call it DEI though. Just say that it's important for
racism,
diversity, and inclusion, and dare I say equity, that we elect the first Black Indian woman president.
Yes.
But don't say all of those words in the same sentence configured slightly differently.
Yeah, with an acronym.
Because that's racist.
Right.
Yes. Oh boy. Well, is she finally going to get an interview? Is that what I'm seeing? I've been scrolling around on X.
I thought she gave one to CNN.
Did she?
I think I saw something about that.
I know they've been talking about. They're like Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are giving their first interview together with whoever, and they're making this huge deal. And I'm like, why aren't they doing interviews every day? Like, why aren't they constantly being interviewed to talk about? I mean, they're two of the most likely next people to be president and vice president. Why aren't they constantly being peppered with questions about what they plan to do, especially since one of them is currently vice president and is running as the change candidate?
Yeah, I'm the change candidate.
It's funny. It's
like we got this.
It's like we got to elect them to find out what they're for, you know? Like,
we got to elect Kamala Harris to find out what's in her.
We have to pass the bill before we can read it, right?
We have to pass Kamala to find out what's in her.
Well, I mean, isn't this straight out of what this is exactly? I mean, people act surprised. So like, she's not giving any interviews. Well, I mean, Biden did the same thing in 2020. He just said it was COVID, but we all know he was because he was, half all that. He's half there back in 2020. You know,
the wild thing is that it was the Democrat side that wanted the first debate to be in June. And
Yeah.
now it's obvious why. They wanted the
They
world
wanted to push him out.
to see that everything they had been saying was a lie, which would then allow the press, which is an extension of the Democrat Party, the corporate press, to go, oh my gosh, we had no idea. Well, he has to go. He's got to go. He's definitely got. And they leaned on it for weeks, and Jill Biden didn't want it. And they knew
fakes,
that.
remember?
They're
Cheap
like,
fakes.
they knew all of this. Yeah, cheap fakes. They knew that the Biden side would fight it. And so they're like, all right, well, this gives us like a month or two to deal with that. And then, worst case scenario, we'll say he got COVID, make him go home. And then, and you're definitely not going to remain on YouTube. And then from there, and then that gives us time to pretend that Kamala Harris isn't the woman who was so unpopular amongst Democrats that she dropped out of the race before the Iowa caucuses in 2019. We're going to pretend that's a different person now. She's America's coconut tree mommy or whatever. and like, it's insane. It's insane. But obviously, it's obvious that the Dem side was like, yeah, Biden's done. And he's going to drag us all down with him.
Yeah. And I do.
I'm going to come in the overflow room.
Man, he's going to come in the overflow room. That's what he wanted to do.
Well, now he can do that to his heart's delight. No one can stop him.
The deep state, the CIA, the handlers, they're in charge. I don't think Biden has been in charge at all. They've always been in charge. It's just he's just checked out. He was down chilling in Rehoboth Beach. I might have bumped into him on the beach. I could have, maybe, if I walked up the beach far enough. Could have bumped into him this past weekend.
Does he have a beach house out there?
Yeah, he's always down in Rehoboth. I don't know.
Yeah,
we went down to Bethany this past weekend, just one last beach weekend. But yeah, and he's just chilling down there. The world is burning, and he's just out here, and Kamala's out here doing concerts.
Dude, let the old man just retire in peace. Just let him.
And keep in mind, he chose to drop out like a week after the Secret Service was powerless to stop the worst shooter on his team from scaling a sloped roof. And because again, you're on YouTube, so I don't want to say anything else.
No.
Go for it.
We've been meaning to start a Rumble channel for a long time.
Yeah,
well, this is your clarion call to do so. When if it had gone the way that some wanted, I would say Trump wouldn't be here anymore. Would not have yet picked his running mate at that point, and Joe would have been gently stepped down, and so it would be Kamala versus whoever the Republican establishment wanted, possibly Nikki Haley, or maybe they'd go with someone a little bit more popular on the MAGA side, who still maybe they would have gone with Vance, or they would have gone with someone that was more kind of friendly on both factions, but knows where their bread is buttered on the establishment side. And then it would truly be, and I mean, keep in mind, I mean, I talk a lot about all my problems with Trump. He certainly is far more establishment friendly than a lot of people like to pretend. But the fact that he's like this unfriendly to the establishment is enough for them to be like, nah, he's got to go. We have to, we have to. And they Bay of Pigs'd him because they did it the worst way possible. They picked the worst shooter in the tri-state area and gave him a chart to look at the last minute so he could whip his head around. Like, it was like that could have been done better. And thankfully for him, they did it at their ability. And it's just wild, like what happened inside of a week, and we don't even really talk about.
And now it's memory hole. We don't even.
It's like it doesn't even matter anymore.
I just think it's all everything since then has just been a big giant plan B. Plan A was just end it. Like, we should have done this in 2016.
Yeah,
just end it. And then they're like, shit. All right, Kamala for president. Like,
Biden gets COVID. Step down. I don't know. Sure, let's try it.
And it's like there's
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, it's just like they were able to get away with it during 2020 with the veil of COVID, but now it's like, oh fuck, they're caught flat-footed. They don't know what to do right now, but they still have the corporate media on their side, and it's all AstroTurf but in a sense, it's a white pill because it just goes to show how desperate they are. But go ahead, Spike. Sorry. Yeah.
If things, it's that meme I've seen many times. If things were lost, if everything was hopeless, all this propaganda would be completely unnecessary. Like that, the reason they're ramping it up is an increasing number of people are like, I don't think this is true. And, and they have alternatives. A lot of people will beat up on social media. And yes, social media has a lot of negatives to it. One of the positives to it is that even with their attempts to try to, limit what's being said and everything else, we have unprecedented access to alternative viewpoints. And when you couple that with the fact that now everyone walks around with an HD camera with internet connectivity, yes, that comes with a lot of trade-offs too. But one of the positives is you now have immediate access to things that are happening sometimes in that moment. Sometimes you're seeing it live, and it's just becoming increasingly difficult for a handful of gatekeepers in the corporate media to determine to only have their point of view be what people see. What
or
they
for them to
rely
get away
on
with shit, right? I mean, the fact that you can have a camera and record political shit, whatever's going on, you can actually stop them from fabricating the reality, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
The one thing that is in their favor, though, is that the vast majority of people are not wildly bright. I guess more importantly, they don't want to care, and they would much rather lean into their normalcy bias. They would much rather hear that everything's fine, the experts have it under control. That's why people were so visceral during the lockdowns. They weren't mad at you for going outside. They were mad at the fact that you probably were right, and they were never going to acknowledge that. And because if you were right, that meant that no one was protecting them from this disease, and there was nothing that was going to save them. And a lot of people's black pill into, away from the establishment was realizing like, wow, there was nothing to protect me. Those lockdowns were bullshit. If anything, they helped induce cold and flu season. So if anything, it made it spread more. But also, like, I then got it and I was fine. And I think like a lot of people realize that, but it takes this like something like a global pandemic for people to actually wake up and be like, oh crap, wow, they are all full of crap, aren't they? And a lot of people leaned even further into it. But that's individual people. That's their inability or refusal to acknowledge the truth. The truth's out there. They just don't want to see it.
Right. And I think so that's why I was going to push back on you there before you made that caveat, because I think the establishment is realizing, we don't need all this propaganda. We have the corporate press. We don't really need it. We can just pretend like none of that happened. We can just completely pretend. And people, like you said, they're just more comfortable with like being comfortable. Like they don't want to have to ask hard questions and think that like, no, I got to deal with the stuff. No, like it goes against everything I was taught. It goes against everything that it's like, it's like they're sitting there thinking to themselves.
They probably don't want to consider the fact that like Secret Service, like the top, the top cops in the land could be circumvented by a fucking like 18-year-old, like,
or worse, in on
nerd.
It. You know what I mean?
Or be in on it. Like that's giving like the lowest common denominator.
It's a scary thought, and for someone who's never had to question anything in their life,
Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of my loved ones because I posted immediately. I'm like, there's not a shot, like that evening. I'm like, there's not a shot in hell that they weren't watching it. And sure enough, all this others, they knew about it for an hour before and all this crap. But I knew, like, I didn't even know that stuff, but I knew it. Like, it was like, that couldn't happen. We just had Trump at the LNC. We couldn't even go into that section of the hotel for like 24 hours. It's not a shot in hell that some kid got on the roof of a farmhouse right next to it and everyone didn't see it. There's no way. And so when I posted that, a lot of my like loved ones that aren't really political or whatever, they were like, do you really think that? I'm like, how could it not be? And there were a lot of people that their response was just like, I just don't even want to imagine that. I'm like, I get it. I don't either, but it's obvious. It's so obvious. Now, if only there was an organization, if you will, that had found a way to get people to circumvent their own cognitive biases by presenting what just look like human interest pieces with a call to action that along the way continue to plant seeds about the fact that government actually can't be trusted and that we can actually work together to take action against these officials when we find them, and that it turns out it's rotten all the way up the pipe and we should be working at that level too. If only someone started an organization, nonprofit, that was focused on the core of libertarianism without all of the got to read this book and understand this philosophy, and just distilled it down into something like a real basic idea, like, I don't know, respect. And then based on that principle, got people to do action in their own communities and work together with people in their communities, and then built up a movement from there.
Man, can it be so simple?
If only. But sadly, I guess, maybe that'll never happen. I don't know, guys.
If only. I know.
If only that would happen.
Yeah.
No, that's it, man. This is a refocus. I think this is like my, getting back involved in the LP was mainly because of the Mises Caucus and get involved at the local level. And what you're doing, Spike, is amplifying that as well. There's different lanes of getting involved local. All here in Maryland. Yep. One of the big things that a lot of us activists in the Libertarian Party here in Maryland are doing is we're laser focused on Defend the Guard. And we're going to testify again, and we are going to publicly shame and cyberbully one individual that's the chair of this committee that would not allow it to come. She's the chair of this committee that would not allow it to come out to a floor for a vote.
Yep.
And be presented. And then our sponsor of the bill, old Ron Paul guy, Republican, pretty good dude, but a good. Like someone an ally. He's there, he's in office, he's doing things. He introduces the bill every year in Maryland. He made a Hail Mary on the House floor or the delegation floor to try to get it, but they didn't want to hear it. So the goal is, it's an off-year election in Maryland, but we're going to shame her. We're going to shame her. We'll probably put a billboard in her district. We'll probably cyberbully her, call her office all the time. Put out notices to everybody in her in her district, in her her house district, to just call it, because one individual. We had a consensus amongst a lot of people in that committee. The last time we testified, it was a couple of us, and so many great questions. It almost came out, but one person completely tied to the military-industrial complex, the whole Democrat machine, just holding it up and not allowing it to go to a floor for a vote. So it's like, okay, off your election, now you're going to be shamed, and then come election year in 2026. Oh, get ready. It's coming, bitch. Like,
good.
It is coming. So
I think I was part of that particular pylon. This is a woman, right? She's a Democrat.
I did. I reached out
Delegate
to you and I
Pena.
said,
yeah, Delegate.
Yes.
I abused my my privilege of having your phone number.
Yes, you pulled me into it. No, and that's fine. That's good. Please do that. So here's the thing. If Trump gets elected, then your talking point gets to be, hey, this Pena wants Donald Trump to be able to use our National Guard without any congressional oversight or without our Governor Moore signing off on it.
Yep.
That's pretty good. That's not good.
You're right.
See, that's the thing. And there was so much scare tactics in the last hearing this past year. They were asking a lot about January 6th and all of this. And it was so, and it's like, no.
What does that even have to do with it?
Right. And it's like, oh, I don't know. Nancy Pelosi called off the National Guard of Maryland. And it's true. I mean, we got the docs here. We don't have to get to it. But it's like, we brought this up, and there were so many questions by all these delegates. And but this one bitch is holding it up because she knows it's right. She knows it's right. And then
she knows where her paycheck comes from.
Exactly.
Right, she knows it'll hurt exactly. One. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And she's trying to step up that ladder. She's trying to go up that ladder. I guarantee she's going to run for Congress. It's part of that Democrat machine, that whole machine here in Maryland. And so, we're going to keep doing it. And that's where the power lies, like you said, Spike, at that local level.
Yep.
Do what you can in various different avenues, because that's what gets people engaged. That's what gets people involved, and not being this online autism of roads and all this bullshit. Like, I'm so tired
We
of that.
weaponize the autism. Listen, the reality is some of our greatest warriors are people that don't like sunlight, and that's okay. It's probably not best for them. Like,
Some
it's
of these
okay.
people
It's
have never felt
These-
grass.
These people couldn't tell you what soil and grass felt like if their lives depended on it. But and obviously that's not all. But I mean, it takes all kinds.
Yep.
If you're going to be online a lot and you want to focus on politics, great. We've got a dozen or so causes you can work on, right? And you can share the hell out of it. And you can be mad about it too. If you want to just be kind, I've met people who are like, I want to be angry. I want to express my anger. Great. Express your anger here, but let's direct it. Undirected energy just becomes useless heat. Directed energy can cut through steel. And that's what we're doing.
Like a Jewish
Take
space
that
laser.
energy. Yes. This is the Jewish space laser that can cut through big government.
That can melt steel beams.
That can melt steel beams. Yes.
Oh man.
Every government official will have to paint their roofs blue. You are definitely not on YouTube anymore. There's no way you're off of YouTube.
Speaking of that, that's been memory hold too. How about the fact that this administration, like, here you go, Maui, $700, or here's $700. Sorry about that. Like, that's just complete. Fucking forget about it. Like, that happened.
Well, that's why they're not, dude. That's why they're not doing interviews, because like they might get asked questions like, "Oh, what's going on over in Maui, dude?
Questions.
Like, how's the rebuilding going?"
Like, we're giving billions to Ukraine. The F-16s, their best fighter pilot, just got shot down.
Yeah.
Like, all this shit just gone to waste.
Meanwhile, there's like native families that are probably living in the woods right now. And
sorry about that. Enjoy your tent.
At least Lenski has got his bombs.
And they're the ones who survived because they disobeyed the officials who told them, stay over there where the smoke is.
Right.
It's insane. I remember when one of the reports came out, it said only those who disobeyed survived. And I took that and made it into I just zoomed in and screenshot just that part.
That was the same thing
who survived.
And I think
were the ones who didn't listen. Sorry,
I think you actually posted this on 9/11, but I think you posted the story about how they were telling people to stay in the buildings in Tower 2.
Rick Rescorla. Yep.
Or Tower 1 after Tower 2 was hit.
Yep. They told people to stay in, but Rick Rescorla, who was, I think I'm saying his name correctly, who was
wait, it was hit? I thought they were CGI planes.
No, this is the real ones. And Rick Rescorla, when they started going down, when the first one went down, they told everyone in the second one to stay in it. And he's he said, these bastards have no idea what they're talking about. And he was the safety team leader for the company he worked for. I forget which it was. He led everyone out, and he ended up dying running back to get people. And he was Welsh, and he was singing these Welsh battle songs to keep people calm and get them down. He was already gone by the time Building 7 had whatever happened to it, but he saved thousands of lives, or at least hundreds of lives, because he disobeyed. The official said, "Don't go in there." He said, "The hell with that." And they weren't going to stop him in the middle of all that. So he went in and got more. Otherwise, there'd been even more people dead. And that was because they disobeyed. And very often in those types of, and I got a lot of pushback on that because I've said this a few times. In the most crucial circumstances, one of the common threads in many disasters is that if you listen to public officials, there's a higher chance you'll die. 9/11, Katrina, the Maui fires, Uvalde, all of these things, the common thread is that the official said do this, and the people who did died.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be officially on Rumble after this episode.
We're going to be spot us on. No, actually, Rumble's I don't know about this.
I don't know.
Find us exclusively on Gab, and
we're just going to be handing out CD-ROMs on the street.
like Alex Jones 20 years ago. Here's some Loose Change, Volume 3.
Yeah.
Here's a floppy disk.
I've got some flash discs out of the back of my my trunk. Meet me at this corner by the crab house.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's where I do all my deals.
Yeah, we're ready to rumble, Brandon.
Yeah, we're ready to rumble. Yeah.
I'm shocked you're not already on Rumble. I even have a
I
Rumble
know.
channel. I
We're
don't do
just
much with
lazy.
it.
Yeah.
Somehow we've just flown under the radar on YouTube. So I
Not
don't know.
now.
We get
Not
taken
now.
down for
Yeah.
copyright strikes, but
Yeah,
as long as
yeah,
you
we-
don't
yeah,
start
we-
playing like 80s
Dumb shit.
music
Blondie.
videos, we should be all right.
Yeah, we played Blondie and got our episode taken down. Whatever.
My one YouTube warning came in 21 when I said in a, and it's now a thing that they won't warn you for. They took it down. I said during an interview, I believe this is what got it because they were like, "Oh, it's COVID misinformation." I'm like, I don't even think I mentioned COVID in this interview. And so this was over the course of like an hour and a half interview, and they won't tell you where the thing happened. And so I even wrote them back, and I'm like, "When did this thing happen?" And so I watched, and at one point, they said that if you took the vaccine, you wouldn't get COVID. And we now know that that's not true. You can still get COVID if you take the vaccine. And they called that misinformation. That's demonstrably correct. Like no one
Maybe
says
about the
anymore
government
that
advice. Maybe they were talking
was
about the
insane.
government advice. That's all.
And so
Yeah,
I actually once I realized it was that, and I kept appealing, and I said, if what you're referring to is when I said that the official said that the misinformation that you couldn't get COVID if you took the vaccine, I was referring to the fact that that was untrue. So you can take the strike down if that's what it was. And they ended up not taking the warning up. But then they changed it to where if you watch this BS thing, they'd take it down after 30 days or whatever. So I watched it. And in that thing, it instructed you that even if you make a YouTube video and say something like, I've heard about this drug, but I took it and it didn't work very well for me, they consider that medical misinformation if it goes against what the official FDA study says about that drug.
Wow.
Wow.
If you're sharing your opinion of what happened to you, that's misinformation.
Wow. Well,
so anyway, see us on Rumble. We'll be on.
Honestly, most people are just probably watching us on X anyways. So
yeah, that's what
they're not going to take us down. So
my X gets way more engagement than just about anything. My Facebook, every once in a while I'll get some bangers on my Facebook, but it's mostly X at this point.
Yeah, same here. Whatever. But yeah, so I think that's about it for tonight on the live show. We're probably going to take this on over to our After Hours podcast. Spike, I don't know if you're going to be available. You want to record a little bit after this?
Yeah, I can stick around for a bit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, tell the good people if they happen to live under a rock with their on Mars with their eyes shut and their fingers in their ear. Tell them where they can find you.
Well, they got a few things they got to do first, apparently, if they're doing all that. But yeah, if you go to youarethepower.net, that is my organization, You Are the Power. We are finding people that are being disrespected by their local governments and their local and state governments now. And we are rallying the public to demand respect. We don't stop fighting until we win, and we win a lot. If you want to win with us, go to youarethepower.net. If you're looking for me on the internet, I am easy to find. I'm a very, very loud, but mostly peaceful Jew. And you can find me. I'm at Real Spike Cohen on Twitter, X. Sorry. I'm Spike Cohen on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me. Yeah, goodbye. YouTube is done. We're done on YouTube. As of the last time I checked, I'm also on YouTube, but probably not for long. And but if you look for me, I'm on everything. If you look for Spike Cohen, you'll find me. If you ever get lost, just look for the ATF page or channel, and you'll find me there beating them up.
Nice. Cool. Well, we're going to take this on over to our After Hours podcast, which we're going to record right after this. You can sign up for as little as $3 a month, and we're going to send you a link so you get to listen in live and comment. And you can also get access to our back catalog of shows that we've done. And so head over to our patreon.com/punkrockliberatorians and sign up. And there's other ways to donate to the show at prlfans.com. And we also have t-shirts for sale over at libertariancountry.com. If you use the code PRL or PRL podcast, you get a 10% discount. Use the code PRL2 for a 20% discount if you spend $50 or more. So until next time, everybody, live free
or die.